going to head to the Pac-12, where Washington will host Oregon. Washington is a 3-point favorite here, over under 67.5. You recall last year, a thriller was 37-34. Washington won in Eugene. Bo Nix got hurt in that game for a stretch, which really cost Oregon, and Washington capitalized late. Washington has a couple, both teams are coming off of a bye, so we'll see what tricks they have up their sleeves and schematic changes. Washington has some more injury concerns than Oregon. We will see if Asa Turner, their safety's back. McMillan, their wide receiver. Adunze also got banged up the end of last game. And then they're really good defensive tackle, Tulu, who I think they need. He's worth monitoring as well. We'll see if Washington get those guys back. You do have road Bo Nix here, which you always have to bring up, where historically he just hasn't been as great in his career than when he's playing at home. When I look at this game just from afar, I think the line is pretty close to right. I have these teams pretty equal, and then you throw in home field advantage. But when I still have questions, I have more questions about the Washington defense than I do the Oregon defense. And if you watch Oregon this year, they're getting a pass rush, which was lacking last year. And they just have better overall personnel to run what Lanning wants to run. They're now more multiple. They're running more complex stuff in his scheme. He has 2 weeks to prepare for this. So, and I don't think Washington's going to have much success running the ball. I think Oregon can throw off the timing. This Washington offense is all about timing. I think they can throw off the timing a bit. And what I think this game ultimately comes down to, I think Oregon's going to win. Now, trusting road Bo Nix is tough, but what I think this game comes down to is I do think Oregon has an advantage in the trench when they're on offense with their offensive line. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. And this game's the margins are going to be thin, but all of the third and fourth and shorts, I think Oregon's going to get. Washington's really struggled to stop those, and Oregon has the advantage up front, and they can rely on their ground game to convert those. Whereas Washington will have to be more reliant on throwing the ball on those third and fourth downs. And I think Oregon will get some pressure, maybe force a couple key incompletions. Additionally, I think Oregon might have just a few more successful trips in the red zone as far as converting those trips into sevens than Washington, because Washington's going to move. They can move the ball up and down the field. One of the best offenses, 3 potential pro receivers, the Heisman front runner at quarterback. When they have space to operate, they're very difficult to defend. But when the field condenses, it becomes a little more difficult. Whereas Oregon, with their rushing attack, I think that they can have a bit more success in getting those sevens in the red zone. So I think that's what's going to be the difference. I think the line is pretty spot on. I mean, I don't think you're going to find many people that are like, I have this team way ahead of this other team. So, these are two pretty evenly matched teams from a power rating standpoint, at least from my perspective. And then you throw in home field. And that's what you're seeing here. Like, this line was 2.5. Then you have people that wanted to buy Washington at home. Then you had 3. Someone said, look, you have some people out there that said these teams are pretty even. Maybe you have Oregon a little head. I'll happily take the field goal, especially if you like some matchup advantages. What do you see here in Washington, Oregon, a game that will have massive implications for the Heisman race, the Pac-12 race, the national championship and college football playoff as well? What do you see?
Yeah, I echo everything that you said. These are 2 different offenses in the way that they get down the field. I mean, they're number 1 and number 2 in quality drives. You can't say anything about these 2 offenses. You can't say anything negative about these 2 offenses and how they operate, but they are 2 different animals. Oregon has been extremely good running the ball and having rush explosives, as to where Washington, the big play usually comes all the way through the air. And no other offenses in the entire nation has less penalties, less missed field goals, interceptions, fumbles. Every drive is 50 yards. Every drive ends in some sort of score. But the glaring weakness is
Bo Nix has no turnover worthy plays, but he's also just not making risky of downfield throws as last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's crazy. I'll get to his rushing stats, which kind of blow me away. But the glaring weakness here is the Washington rush defense. And you have to ask yourself, is Bo Nix going to get involved with that? Right now, Bucky Irving, Jordan James, Noah Whittington, they're all averaging at least 3.5 yards after contact. They've combined for 26 explosive runs. Bucky Irving being the one that creates the more missed tackles. James, really leads the team, 7 TDs. He's the bruiser. But where's Bo Nix? He's not running this year. Is he being saved for this game, or is he just not needed to because they have a great stable of running backs? Or maybe it's because he had a high ankle sprain last season that kept him out of so many games late, and maybe Lanning thought that would have got him over the hump for the Pac-12. He's had 7 rushing attempts on the season. That's a comparison to 66 last year. So I don't know if they just unleash him here, especially with these really poor Washington rush metrics on defense. The one thing I keep coming, and Washington, they're more explosive, top rank in the country in big play rate. They lead the nation in 10, 20, and 30-yard passes. So there's no doubt that they're going to be able to get down the field. But what do you do if you're Dan Lanning? Do you decide to lean into your run, shorten the game, and keep the ball out of the hands of Michael Penix? Kind of think that might be the answer here because the running backs have been unbelievable. Washington hasn't been able to stop that. Games against Arizona and Cal. I mean, that Cal game was a little bit hidden because they got such a huge lead at the beginning. You didn't really see some of the advanced metrics in there that say that Cal could run the ball all over this Washington defense. So ultimately, I have money down now on Oregon team total over 32.5. I want to play Oregon +3. I'm a little bit nervous about the number of points in this game because if Dan Lanning decides we're going to take the ball, we're going to play keep away, we're going to go time of possession, abuse this rush defense of Washington and not let Penix on the field, this is going to be a lower scoring game and Oregon's going to control the trench. So I'm with you. I haven't bet Oregon +3, but I know I'm heading there. I know I'm on my way.
Yeah, because of the matchup advantages, my intuition, along with A&M, Oregon is going to be in my round robin. I actually like the under here. It's scary, but what you said, I think Oregon is going to be methodical, is going to control the clock, especially with the new clock rules. Like last year was 37-34, but new clock rules this year, both defenses are a little better than last year. But you got to remember last year, both defenses were really bad. And so I think Oregon's going to control the clock here, keep the ball out of Washington's hands. And then on the other side, when Washington has the ball, I think Oregon's defense is significantly improved. I think Lanning's going to have a good game plan here. They're going to be able to get some pressure. And in the red zone, I think they're going to make some stops and force some field goals. It just becomes much more difficult for Washington, which is, moves the ball with such ease with those 10, 20, 30-yard gains. But you can't really do that when the field shrinks. So, and then throw in some weather. There could be some weather in Seattle. And Washington, while they're a high-power passing attack, they're not fast. They're slow as far as their number of seconds it takes to run plays. So,
one team is superior. One team is superior on passing downs defense by far from a success rate and limiting explosives, and it's Oregon. So,
yeah, I think Oregon's going to win this game. It's going to be super close. The one thing that could swing it in Washington's favor is, does Road Bo Nix make a couple key boneheaded turnovers?
I got a guy on Twitter that keeps telling me that's all Auburn based. It's not Oregon based. Quit talking about it on the podcast. I'm gonna have to do some deep dives on the Bo Nix Pac-12 road games.
I mean, look, he arguably should have lost at Texas Tech.
Yeah,
which people forget, which seems like 2 months ago. All right, good stuff there. Oh, by the way, here's a question for you. It's hypothetical. It's hard to project what the fuck's going to happen in this crazy, awesome college football season. But in the past, when you have dominant SEC, right, like with 2 or 3 elite teams, when they played each other early, midway through the year, you would say, okay, the loser of this game is not eliminated from the college football playoff, right? Because you could go on to be a 1-loss SEC champ, and then you still are going to get into the college football playoff. There's human bias in who goes to the college football playoff with the committee, and that's just the way that it is. But I feel like with how deep the Pac-12 is this year, the loser of this game shouldn't necessarily be eliminated from the college football playoff picture. In the past, the Pac-12, like once you lose a game, it's like, all right, you're done. You pretty much had to run the table and win the Pac-12. But I don't think the loser of this game is eliminated. It might even be a chance to buy one of them, depending on the futures price, because then if they go on to win out, like say Oregon wins, if Washington wins out, which, they play USC and they knock them off, and then say Washington beats Oregon on a neutral to win the Pac-12, could see them still getting in. Would you agree with that?
Here's what's going through my head. Would you rather have a national title future on Oregon or Washington as a one loss, or Ohio State undefeated right now? And my answer is either of the Pac-12 teams over Ohio State. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe it's my hate for Ohio State right now, but I think these Pac-12 teams are full of quality and can rumble with some of the big boys in the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah. I think that because I think Oregon's going to win. If you like Oregon national title future, I would buy it now. If you like Washington, it might be if Oregon wins this game. We'll talk about that next week. We'll see where they sit and what else happens this weekend.